topic on efficient permit management with a GIS-enabled workflow engine will lead us through for approximately the next 45 minutes to an hour. There will be time for questions and answers towards the end. Before we start to the formal content, just a couple housekeeping items here at the beginning. So we are open for questions today. As you're joining us today over Zoom, please use the tools along the top of the screen for questions. So there's a Q&A panel at the top. Just select that button. It'll open up a dedicated window where you can put into the moderated Q&A feed any questions that you have that you may want any of our presenters today to answer. We'll use the chat to share any other useful messages as well. So there is a chat feature where we may be commenting through as well. The chat is a separate box as well that you'll see and is accessible at the top of the screen. The chat is good for connecting with other folks on the call today. Any suggestions that you want for us to be aware of as we deliver the webinar content and any other future items that you would want us to discuss. If you have any technical issues or tell us something that you thought was really helpful today, the chat would also be a great spot to make mention of that. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, we are providing surveys as a follow-up from today's webinar, and we are going to be recording today's webinar. So for those that can't attend today that were registered, will receive a recording. And when you're done today with the webinar, we'll be sending you that link to answer a survey on the content today. Okay, so kicking us off for our topic today on efficient permit management with the GIS-enabled workflow engine. Again, my name is Christopher Roth, and I'm the industry manager here at Esri Canada for Public Works and Community Development Solutions. I'm responsible for providing solutions and understanding to the market for municipalities, agencies that are looking for asset management, work management, public works, utilities, municipalities, private utilities. I provide help for customers that are looking for these solutions, as well as our existing customer base of over 80 customers across Canada today. I've been with Esri Canada for 2 years, and in the past, I worked in local government myself. I am joined today by special guests. So we have Stephen Paul, the Director of Community and Development Services at Lennox and Addington County. His portfolio there includes economic development, tourism, land use planning, public libraries, and museums. Prior to returning to home where he lives, Lennox and Addington, Steve worked for the City of Toronto's tourism department as a producer of large-scale events and festivals. He is the past president of the Great Waterway Regional Tourism Organization and the Ontario East Economic Development Commission. Stephen's a graduate of Queen's University. Also joining us today is Todd McDonald, the president from Performance Concepts. It's a 23-year-old consultancy that's serving Canadian municipalities. Performance Concepts is a national leader in working with municipal clients around transforming and improving specifically their development approvals processes with lean approaches, lean thinking, and full cost recovery toolkits. Also, we have Nicole Ferguson, a planning technician from the City of Sarnia, joining us today. She supports geospatial technologies within the city's community services division. Nicole is the city's PLL administrator, their permits, lands, and licensing solution. She helps to modernize business processes and enhance customer service through the use of Cityworks PLL and GIS. Nicole joined the city in 2021 and brings 4 years of Cityworks experience to the city's implementation and the rest of their team there. So today's agenda for this webinar is to help you, the participants here, understand the benefits of a configurable workflow engine within an e-permit solution. That's the terminology we're using today. You may call it development, you may call it applications. There's lots of synonyms out there, but we're talking about a solution that you can use to manage your business. We'll also look at how an Esri GIS background and backdrop to this can streamline and add value to the overall permitting process as well as intelligence. And then we'll also focus in hearing about some digital transformation stories from these customers that have joined us today and the benefits they've gained through using the solution of Cityworks PLL. So just to start us off, just to set the context for today, we're talking about these solutions and specifically in our context, Cityworks PLL, but configurable development approval solution. And this is really quite critical. We are in a day and age where there is a lot going on. In a recent scan of what's occurring across the country, no one would be missing what's in the news around housing, the cost of housing, the demand for more housing, and the fact that governments everywhere are being forced to react, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, and are introducing a lot of changes. In fact, even just preparing for this webinar this week, there were changes that were announced here in Ontario, where I live, around density changes for development charges, the increase in providing opportunities to put more units into existing buildings. And so there's been a lot that's been happening. Specifically here in Ontario, there's been a lot of challenges around municipal zoning orders that have been forcing in additional development to increase, industrial and commercial sites. We've been seeing changes with municipal zoning laws as well. And Bill 109 in Ontario has introduced some interesting penalties that provide prescribed timelines in the More Homes for Everyone Act that are definitely creating challenges for municipalities and upper tier agencies, development entities. In British Columbia, there's been a lot of funding from the provincial government that's been provided to try to stimulate new housing. Even here in Ontario, the goal in the next 10 years is to build 1.5 million homes. Some of these goals are very large. Alberta and Manitoba are in much in the same situation. In a study that Scotiabank released recently, they found that there was a structural housing deficit in the prairies and in Ontario compared to other G7 nations. So if we further look at one of these entities, Bill 109 here in Ontario, and the challenges that this provides for our communities, is there are now new administrative penalties that require tracking and understanding of different timeline requirements and understanding who is currently holding the case or the baton. Municipalities are under this regulation to report on development permit efficiencies to ensure timeline requirements are met as per the bill. There's now a need to track multiple processing clocks, which stop and start at different times in the process. These clocks, who's in possession of the case at any one given time, and this can range from customer service agents to internal processing to external or third-party stakeholders. And this last group particularly is challenging, because they're typically beyond the municipality's direct control. This is sort of another analogy we can think about when you play a game of chess and you have a play clock engaged, and as each person's taking a turn, their clock is counting down only for them. So the key now is really to have a time-enabled system in place that can track and provide the organization support and documentation to avoid penalties if delays are attributable to external agencies. Having a workflow engine is key. So having the documentation in place that shows what's happened at different stages is so important. Workflow consists of all tasks associated in your development case. The workflow is your command center where you're going to manage all the various tasks, and users can efficiently move through the tasks that are assigned to them, and different milestones can be achieved. Workflows can consist of many different tasks, such as reviews and inspections, public hearings, public engagement. The ability to view, add, and organize and update those for a permit case are very important, and to move through plan reviews to issuance, inspections, meetings, and hearings. Those tasks are really important as part of an overall solution, so that you have them in a template by default, but they're actually also flexible too, so that you can add and remove tasks for each permit or on a case on an as-needed basis. Stakeholder engagement is also at a high need. With Cityworks PLL and features like enterprise URLs, there's a way to bring information out to additional constituencies internally, externally, and with regulators. So looking at our guests who are joined here today, their focus has been on implementing a specific product in Cityworks PLL, the permits, licensing, and land product, which gives development agencies direct control over their business processes. The basic structure of PLL is that it's highly adaptable and can be tailored to an organization's needs during configuration. The basic package can be configured to allow access by multiple departments, and we can see a lot of those ringed around this diagram today. Planning, building departments, they can be used to encourage coordination on development cases, or code enforcement for bylaw, new utility connections, or cooperation in the construction of new subdivisions and providing infrastructure in terms of water, sewer, and roads. The cases are what drive this overall process, and they track the transactional data required for community development and regulation, which can be configured to provide flexible business management. Automatic notifications can be used to alert users, departments, divisions, and third parties when their task is ready to begin. The templates can be customized to manage the required data for any specific process, and many templates can be created and designed to streamline the development process. And basic forms are available, which can be adapted to serve an individual organization's needs. Cityworks PLL also fully utilizes an organization's investment in spatial data, with the GIS being the superior platform for which to organize, store, and manage data around assets that are related to permits, such as parcels, addresses, intersections, roads, corridors, tracking their location, the connectivity of these, their history, their detailed attributes, and what's occurred there in the past is very important. This web GIS-centric approach in Cityworks reduces the amount of land data duplication common across many different departments with silos. The GIS is the one source for all land-related data on a given parcels. Users can identify any assets, view any information on parcels, zoning, surrounding areas. And so as long as the layer is available in GIS, permits and cases can be associated with coordinates that can be readily queried and displayed on a map. Combining the detail of the GIS with Cityworks results in spatial reports as well that provide an organization with information needed for decision making. To get some interaction going today, we have a couple polls where we would really like to hear from the audience today. So our first poll today is simply, does your member municipality work with an upper tier or vice versa? If you are an upper tier, do you work with lower tiers to standardize the development approvals process? We have members here in the audience today that would love to know this, as well as our presenters, as they bring some content to you. So if you could provide that vote, we'll discuss those results in 30 seconds. We'll just provide you a couple moments to provide that response and get it into our polling system. Thank you. Just give it another couple seconds for everyone to get their poll responses in, and then we'll be sharing those results. All right, thank you very much, our moderators. So we've got some feedback here. We've got 5 out of 29 saying yes. So we're seeing some level of coordination. We're seeing a lot that do not coordinate, and many who are not required to coordinate. So this is actually a pretty good spread. With that, let's move to our first special guests of the day with Lennox and Addington. Stephen Paul is going to be our first guest speaker. And Stephen, pass the baton to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. And thanks for allowing us to tell our story of a development approvals modernization project and how we're going forward with digitization of our processes here in Lennox and Addington County. You can flip to the next slide, Chris. So a little bit about us. We're located in Eastern Ontario, right between Kingston and Belleville, and we are comprised of 4 local municipalities: Addington Highlands Township, Loyalist Township, Stone Mills, and the town of Greater Napanee. And this project has been an 18-month journey and a partnership, and a really strong partnership to determine how we can, firstly, work together and streamline processes. And now we're in the phase of actually executing that and implementing it. It all started back in 2020, where we collaborated to contract performance concepts. You're going to hear from Todd McDonald shortly, to review all our development approvals processes. And our ultimate priority was to look at modernizing development and planning processes with the goal to implement streamlined and consistent approaches across all municipalities. So when we launched this in the spring of 2023, if you apply for a building permit in Loyalist Township, it's going to be the exact same process and look the same and feel the same as what it would for the town of Greater Napanee or our other 2 municipalities as well. And that's a big part of what our goal with this project is in working with Cityworks Esri. Next slide, please. So I'm an economic developer by trade, and this project really started from that perspective and we developed some, I would say, guiding principles as we looked at modernization and digitizing our processes. And again, as an economic developer, I mean, every day I'm really working within a very competitive environment. I mean, we're competing for investment attraction for industry and commercial development. We're competing for housing, and we're competing for talent and people now. And those 3 things combined was really a big driver in why we wanted to modernize our processes. And we ultimately see this as a significant competitive advantage for us, because ultimately, complicated development processes can contribute to less innovation, reduced affordability, and a less attractive location for investment. And from our side of things, our approach has not been sustainable and allow us to be competitive within a really competitive marketplace. So ultimately, our project was not about streamlining outdated processes, but we looked at creating, again, a modern system that really takes an aggressive approach to growing our communities. And we've been very focused on the uniqueness, the being innovative and being impactful. And again, we're really pleased that Esri and this tool will allow us to meet those goals. Ultimately as well, we need to be customer focused. And we have what we call a made in LNA approach here, where we want to treat all our customers with an individual approach and treat them as an individual. And we're seeing this tool will allow us the ability to do that. And then another really important factor is that, must support competitive timeframe targets. Some of those are now built in from Bill 109 to some of the changes we're seeing here in Ontario. But it's really important for us to be able to regularly report on performance indicators and understand really what's happening within our community. Again, wearing the hat of an economic developer, it's important for our group and our office to know where is investment taking place, who's investing, where are they coming from, and then ultimately, are we meeting our timelines and our goals and objectives to ensure that, again, we're competitive and we provide the absolute best environment to invest, to move, to live here as well. Next screen, Chris. So as we went through our modernization project, and again, this has been an 18-month path, our number one recommendation was that the county and the 4 local municipalities should prepare and roll out a development approvals process, electronic public portal, and workflow software solution. This was ratified by all our councils in our communities, all our senior management. With that goal, we did an RFP and a procurement process, and fortunately, we're able to contract and work in partnership with Esri and Cityworks. So as we speak today, we're implementing and building. And again, the hope and goal is that we would launch in the spring of 2023. Next slide. And then from our standpoint, I guess a bit of a service announcement in a sense from Lennox and County Economic Development, but we were really fortunate to have a huge $1.5 billion announcement on a EV battery materials facility be built in our community. And there's a lot of different components, of course, that went to the success of this. But one of those components was the streamlining work that we have done over the last 18 months. And we're really looking forward to rolling out our Cityworks PLL tool to assist Umacore on their application processes, which you can imagine would be a large project and a very daunting task. So timing wise, it's worked out extremely well. So thanks for the opportunity to do this. And I'm now going to pass it along to Todd McDonald from Performance Concepts.
Thanks, Stephen, and good afternoon, everybody. Oh, I see a poll.
We've got another poll here.
Let's deal with that as an intermission point.
So if we could have the next poll come up. Thank you, moderator. And we'll get these results here, Todd, and then that will give us something else to talk about.
Yeah, perfect.
So in this case, the question is it important that we measure the days when the applicant has the case file, when the municipality has the case file, and then we measure timelines, which the regulatory body requires of us? So give 30 seconds for responses, and then we'll post up the results to this poll. And Todd will have lots to talk about on this subject. All right, thank you, everybody. Okay. Well, we saw the results I was hoping for, that we would see coordination around the fact that this is something we need to do. We're seeing some that say that this is difficult. I agree, it is. And then the last one I thought also made a lot of sense, that at times what we're being asked to do doesn't really necessarily always make the most sense. And so thanks with this information, Todd. Let's take it away and I'll get you onto your slide, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. And I'm relieved to see those polling results. Otherwise, my remarks could have been an uphill climb. But maybe we can just sort of jump one slide in. And, as Stephen had mentioned, the modernization challenge for LNA was pretty clear. LNA is not positioned in an ideal location. They have the Kingston, Ontario growth mode. to one side of them along 401. They've got the east end of Greater Toronto on the other. So projects weren't just going to magically migrate into LNA. And to Stephen's credit and to the credit of the 5 municipalities in the coalition, they recognized that the development approval process itself could be a magnet to attract applicants and new development with all of the benefits that that entails. And you know, the recent game changer with Umicore is an example of this strategy beginning to work. Now, we were retained performance concepts, as we have been in numerous places in Ontario and now in British Columbia, through these modernization reviews. The province, being a little bit foresighted, recognized that municipalities need some seed money to modernize their development approvals process. These reviews are available, and we're doing a bunch of these third-party reviews where we are able to speak truth to power about what's working right now and what needs to be changed to work better in the future. And, you know, we adopt a lean perspective here, looking at the value chain, making sure that processes have been optimized, that waste has been reduced. And streamlining and standardizing is the challenge of the day, because of course our development industry friends want to make sure that the conveyor belt for moving files is consistent and that they understand the velocity and it's predictable. Thank you. Next slide. So again, as Stephen mentioned, it would be a dumb thing to do to simply streamline your as is or to automate your as is process. So we've spent a lot of time in LNA working with the 2 levels of government, 5 municipalities in total, on sort of a who does what exercise, on streamlining the county's view or the county's involvement. One of the big strengths in the LNA model is we've rationalized the system so that it is as one-tierish as possible. The county has delegated decision-making to the local municipalities, and we can build out what will feel to an applicant very much like a single-tier process with the county's involvement never getting in the way, and in fact, the county facilitating standardized performance via streamlined timeframes and this and the Esri PLL solution. And so moving from as is to as should be in the way that the work is envisioned, and then automating it, you know, in a number of ways, but with the core of that being the workflow tool. And we certainly know that the combination of a front-end portal that can do some quality control things with application submissions and the workflow tool in the back-end sandbox is really important. Thank you. So typically these reviews sort of go this way. We start with data, we do the current state, we look at data, we talk to applicants, we map processes, or we review existing process mapping. Through the application of best practices and lean techniques, we move forward to the as should be workflow, the envisioned workflow of the future. And once we are able to sort of document what that looks like, the workflow being sort of process mapping, but also supporting business rules for how we regulate the movement of the file or the case through the process. We have the roadmap for automation. And much of our work has been developing that roadmap with intense coordination and interaction with the 5 municipalities, the county, and the 4 partners. And so these DAP reviews that we've been doing set the scene. We're not automating the status quo. We are digitizing and modernizing a new model that reflects the changes that the client municipalities are looking at. Next, thank you. So just a quick excerpt, and this is the importance of countdown clocks. And, you know, we were able to establish as should be timeframes. Now, by definition, these are a little outdated now because the province keeps stirring the pot and the timeframes keep changing. We'll talk about the need to be nimble in a minute. But the point here is we were able to standardize existing timeframes and extrapolate what best practice timeframes would be. And we can now start to capture those in countdown clock functionality inside of PLL. And the point is we know what the velocity is that we're looking for from our development approvals process workflow conveyor belt, and we can now resource ourselves and automate accordingly. Thank you. On the accountability side, Stephen mentioned performance indicators. You can't manage what you can't measure. And there are some interesting measurement challenges in development approvals world. So we have worked with these municipalities and indeed all our clients to establish key performance indicators that work in the development approvals process service delivery channel. They're driven by timeframes and the consistency of meeting those timeframes. And they can be incorporated into a plan, do, check, act way of running the business. So to this extent, the PLL tool is not just about reporting results, it's about managing the business, setting targets, executing against them, revising targets based on actual performance in a cycle of continuous improvement. PLL automation should equal continuous improvement of our DAP service delivery model. Thank you. Now, of course, in terms of getting this done, and Stephen can probably speak to this better than I can, there was a competitive process, there's a capital project. Our work as subject matter experts interfaces with PLL, Esri PLL experts work in sort of automating the process. And so the capital project now is the coming together of the clients, the Esri team, and the performance concepts advisory team. Thank you. Now, this kind of functionality, I think, is critical. This isn't an Esri PLL thing. This is an any workflow tool that's going to work thing, where we've got to have certain functionality in place to sort of make this work. So we certainly need to make sure that the development approvals process documents themselves can be managed inside the sandbox. So we've got to have, auto refresh capabilities so that as we're moving through technical review cycles, we know we're working on the right version of the drawings. And you may raise your eyes at that, but I hear it all the time in my practice. During complicated back and forth ping pong games with the applicant, should I be working on version 5 of the documents, or are we on version 6? Because you got multiple business units involved within a municipality, that's not always obvious. Your workflow tool solution has to standardize the drawing so that we all know we're working on latest available options. We got to have the workflow processes, of course, embedded in the key milestones, probably at a fairly granular level, because by setting out the milestones, we now have the reference points for setting up the countdown clocks. How many controllable file days does it take me to move from milestone A to milestone B, et cetera, et cetera. This concept that I call process drawbridges, I think, is also important to the extent that completion of work from milestone 1 to 2 is a precondition of moving forward to milestone 3 or milestone 4. Think of the overlap, for instance, between a site plan application and a building permit. We really can use PLL workflow functionality to set those kinds of drawbridges and the conditions through which you can progress from one milestone to the next. And then, of course, reporting by parcel, reporting by case. And by parcel, I mean the geographic parcel of moving across, planning act applications, building permit, other required permits across the, the geographically defined development project itself. And then from the far side of the firewall, and I think this is super important, across the portal, we have to have capabilities so that applicants and key stakeholders can look across the firewall through the portal at some elements of our sandbox data to understand the progress of their files, or indeed understand the progress of a portfolio of files. So we've got to be able to have information flowing back and forth from PLL world across the portal and into the real world of applicants and construction. Thanks. Next slide. So again, as you consider a sort of a PLL project in your future, or perhaps currently, the role that I think our team has played that has added value is this ability to swivel in our chair and speak fluent development approvals process. We speak fluent DAP, so we can engage with the subject matter experts in the municipal world. We can talk DAP, we can figure out functionality requirements, we can build process maps and business rules, and then our team pivots in our chair and we face Esri and we translate DAP into PLL language. And so we bring those DAP fluencies and literacies to this kind of a project. Esri brings, of course, their PLL workflow expertise and an increasing fluency, I must say, in DAP language. And together, we are able to collaborate to sort of serve the needs of the clients moving forward. Thanks. And next, if indeed I have a next, yeah. So quick example here of the nature of the work that we've been doing as sort of the DAP advisors. So, I mean, high level process concepts translated into detailed Visio type process mapping. And the key to the mapping is not just to put out sort of a flat process, it's to support the mapping with business rules and business intelligence about how we proceed through mapped activities. So don't stress too much about being able to read the Visio map here. The point is, for all of your planning applications, for all of your core processes, the maps reflect the milestones, they reflect the countdown clock time frame. So you'll see, here's where we are on day 1, here's where we are on day 15, et cetera, et cetera. And these countdown clocks, again, the key element here is what we call controllable file processing days. We want to make sure that we are controlling the file. We understand the amount of time the applicant's in control in the ping pong game. We want to understand the time the municipality's in control. And that's going to be necessary for all of the clocks we have to have. Bill 109 clocks that trigger fee refunds, Bill 108 clocks that configure and trigger, appeals to the OLT for municipal no decisions. Multiple clocks, strong processes, supporting business rules. Thanks. Just another example. In the interest of time on this, let's just keep moving forward. And this is just a quick example of the question of nimbleness. We need to be nimble as we move forward. So Bill 109 and literally yesterday, Bill 23, the rollout in Ontario of the changing rules of engagement for development approvals mean that our workflow tool needs to be nimble and it needs to be adaptable. So on the fly, this kind of process reworking, municipalities in Ontario are scrambling like crazy to do this kind of stuff right now, change the configuration of their processes, change where in the life of an application they're doing certain kinds of work, process milestones being shed, other ones being added. It's an evolving environment, and your workflow tool solution has to be scalable and nimble and able to change as the regulatory framework changes as well. Thanks. Next slide.
Thanks, Todd. We have a poll coming up for all of our participants today.
Right.
This will be our last poll today.
And strong configuration of your as should be model are sort of key lessons. And with that, I'll be quiet and let the poll proceed.
Thank you very much, Todd, for the summary. So before City of Sarnia and Nicole Ferguson presents, we wanted to put this poll out to just give Nicole some context as a presenter, who will be providing some discussion on an electronic plan review solution. So just want to see how many people are aware of these solutions, to what extent they utilize them, and what extent they would like to be utilizing them. So please put in your questions and we'll put up the answers here momentarily. Thank you. And our poll has closed and we have our answers here. So as we come into Nicole's presentation, we can see that we have lots of folks that need this type of a solution and some that don't know what it is. So Nicole, I think you have lots of grounds here to talk about what these are and what it means for the City of Sarnia. So we pass this off to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Okay, so I'll just pull my screen up here. Perfect. So as Chris mentioned, my name is Nicole Ferguson. I am a planning technician here at the City of Sarnia. And today I'm going to talk to you about our Cityworks PLL implementation for building permits. and some of the new tools we're in the process of launching, including a digital plans review integration. So I'll start off with a brief project background, and then I'll dive into our building permit circulation process, talk a little bit about how we're using Cityworks and the solution we're currently implementing. And then I have a quick demonstration at the end to show you what some of these new tools look like. A little bit of background on City of Sarnia for those who may not be familiar. We are home to about 72,000 residents, and we are a lower tier municipality. We're located 1 hour west of London, Ontario, and 1 hour north of Detroit, Michigan. So we're right on the bottom of Lake Huron. And as a corporation, we started looking at Cityworks a few years ago, and since then have started to implement it as a corporate-wide solution. So we do have several business units coming into both Cityworks AMS and PLL. And our main goals with Cityworks are to modernize and increase efficiency, increase accountability to the community, and promote transparency and public access to information. And looking at our PLL project implementation timeline, we do have quite a few things going on. And we've broken it out into a few phases here. So we started with phase 1 for building permits, and that went live just January of this year. So we're just coming up to the 1-year anniversary. And we're currently working on implementing our integration with DigiPlan, which will support our concurrent digital plans review process. And that's launching on Monday. So right after the session, actually, I'm diving right into training. So that is active and going live quite soon. And then we have phase 2 for our PLL project launching later in November for bylaw and licensing. And then looking ahead, we have our planning department coming in, the launch of our public access portal, and our engineering development permits joining PLL as well. I pulled a few stats out of our Cityworks system just to give you an idea of where we're at right now in terms of our use for building permits. So we went live January 4th, 2022. And when we launched, we had approximately 40 standardized templates pre-configured in the system. So we went through and identified workflows for all of our building permits, and we standardized our process flow. So that was part of those standard templates that we launched. And we have about 25 regular users who are logging into Cityworks on almost a daily basis. And of those 25 users, 12 are actually dedicated to supporting the plans review process and our building permit circulation. And those 12 users are spread across 5 different departments. One of those departments is actually located at our upper tier municipality, the County of Lambton. So the county staff are actually signing in and putting their comments and reviews directly into our Cityworks system for the plumbing permits. And since launching, we've entered about 500 or over 500 permit applications into the system, which has resulted in almost 450 issued permits to date. Now I'm going to dive into our building permit circulation process in a little bit more detail and talk to you about some of those new tools that I mentioned earlier. So when we launched Cityworks, we started looking at our circulation process and we were asking ourselves some questions. So the first question was, how can we streamline the process for reviewers? So how can we make this process easier for our staff? And then we're also looking at how can we better monitor current circulations? So in the past, circulations were being tracked manually through tools such as spreadsheets. And we really wanted to automate that. And we wanted that information to show in our system. And then that led us into the next question, which is how can we increase the visibility of revision timelines to better prioritize our reviews? So in the building permit world, we're working under timelines set by the Ontario Building Code. And those timelines vary depending on the nature of the building permit. So we wanted those timelines to be built right into our solution. And when staff sign in, we wanted them to see exactly where the review sits within that timeline so that they have a better idea of how they need to prioritize their work. And all these questions essentially led to the last question here of how can we increase customer service? So we're always focusing on that customer service side of the world. And we really want to make sure that our processes are streamlined so that the applicant is satisfied and they're receiving their building permit in a timely manner. So with all that in mind, we came up with a pretty cool solution. And there's basically 3 parts to the solution. The first part being our Cityworks PLL implementation. And then the second part is our integration with DigiPlan, which is a cloud-based electronic plans review solution. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in just a moment. And then our last component here is our tie-in with ArcGIS dashboards. So we don't want to lose that spatial element. And this is where the dashboard comes into play. It's a really, really great tool that's allowed us to basically package everything up. And it essentially will act like a command center for our staff. So taking a look at each of those components in a little bit more detail, I'll start with Cityworks. So I've broken this out into 2 subcomponents. So part 1A is our provincial revision times. So those are those revision standards that are set by the province. And we've built them right into Cityworks using our case data. So as soon as an application is entered into Cityworks, our admin staff are assigning the appropriate revision time category based on the nature of that permit. And then the next component in Cityworks is our PLL workflow tasks. So when we implemented PLL, we standardized the intake and circulation process for all of our building permits. And through this process, we were able to identify those key tasks that represent key milestones in the revision time, which include application received, deemed complete, and the permit being issued. And so these tasks are built right in, and every single application will have these come up. So that way, as staff are going through and processing the permits, Cityworks is actually tracking the dates associated with these tasks automatically in the background. So that actual end date lives in the system. And that's what we're using basically to build out a timeline for each of our building permit applications. And then we can compare that timeline to those provincial standards. And the second part is our integration with DigiPlan. And DigiPlan supports concurrent digital plans review, which we're really excited to launch. And it integrates directly with PLL using the API. So that means that we can actually upload all of our plans to Cityworks PLL, and then users can open those plans directly from Cityworks in DigiPlan, where they can then mark up, take measurements, compare submissions, and eventually apply their approval signature. Then once they're done, those final drawings are automatically packaged up by DigiPlan and sent back to Cityworks. So it's a really seamless experience and process for our users. And then part 3 is the ArcGIS dashboards. So this is where we are essentially bundling up all of the data from Cityworks. So we're looking at the revision time category, our task end dates, the permit location or the parcel, so are tied to the GIS. And then we're also generating DigiPlan file links. And what's really nice about the file links in DigiPlan is they're just based off of the case number in Cityworks. So it's really easy to create those dynamic links and send all of this information through to a GIS query layer. So this query layer is reading everything. It's picking up on that revision time category. And then we've also told it to look at some internal standards as well. So those internal standards are a few days shorter than the provincial requirements, just to ensure that we are providing the highest quality customer service that we can. And it's looking at those standards and comparing it to our task end dates. And it's basically doing some duration calculations, letting us know where we're at within those timelines and how many days are remaining. And once again, it's tied to that property on the map, so we can push that out into the ArcGIS dashboard. And that dashboard is really, like I said, the command center for our staff. They can see exactly where the applications are in the timelines, how many days are remaining, and use it to actually launch the plans and start the reviews from there. That's going to lead me into my demonstration. So today I'm going to show you one of the dashboards that we are going to be launching with DigiPlan next week. And this dashboard is called our reviewer to-do list. So everybody who is in Cityworks and has access to reviews or who will be assigned reviews will have access to these dashboards. And this is what they will be using moving forward to track their work in Cityworks. So I'll launch my demo here. Right now, so I'm just in Cityworks, and I'm just looking at a sample permit I put together for today's presentation. And I'm just on the main panel there, so you can see it's just a residential accessory building application. We have a location tied to it, so it's for 127 Christina Street South, and the status is under review. So we are ready to start our circulation process. And as I scroll through the permit here, you can see we have all of the information pre-populated for us. So we have our parcel tied to the application. So like I said, that connection to the GIS is essentially what allows us to leverage these dashboards. And we have our contact information in there. And then we have our details or our case data. So this is where we've assigned that revision day, revision time category. So you can see here, this one's set to 10 days. So we're all good there. That's going to feed into our dashboard as well. And then our next panel here is our workflow. So some of our tasks have been completed already. So the application's been entered, it's been assigned, and it's been deemed complete. You'll notice there's a little icon next to the application entered task. And that means we've actually attached our drawings directly to Cityworks. So if I open up this task here, you'll see our cycle 1 submission as a PDF has been uploaded, and essentially this is now ready to open in Digiplan. So before I do that, I'm just going to double check here that we have the planning review assigned to myself. And I'm just going to work with the one review for today to keep it simple. Perfect. And so that is essentially what's going to send the review to my dashboard. And this dashboard is embedded directly into Cityworks. So all I have to do right now is click on the My Reviews button there on the side, and that's going to launch my dashboard. And this is a really seamless experience. We've set colors and everything to really flow really well with Respond. And as this loads here, you'll see I have some indicators across the top. I can quickly see my overdue reviews, anything due today. And right now I have 2 reviews sitting in my list. So there's that top review there for 127 Christina Street South. And just looking at that right now, I can see some basic information such as the address, the file number, the assigned inspector, and a description of work. And then in addition, I also have my business days remaining. So this is that counter that's tied to the assigned revision time category, our internal standards, and the task dates back on the workflow. What's really nice here too is I already had a review on my to-do list, but the new one was actually bumped to the top because that second review down there at the bottom has a longer timeline. So right now that one is 7 days out from being due. So that is showing up down there at the bottom. So our whole goal here is to allow users to better prioritize their tasks just on increased visibility of these timelines. So if I click on that top review here, you'll see our tie to the GIS come back in. So the property is updated on the map there in that little preview. So I can see my property of interest. And then below that, I have a link to any files in that area. So I can see other files that may be associated to this property. And in this case, I do actually have a second permit that's already been issued for a residential addition. So the idea here is as a reviewer, I already know of this related permit. I can see the file number. I can see who last reviewed it. So if I have any questions, I know exactly who to contact and I can save some time there. Then lastly, we have our submission history. So if this application is previously circulated and had any previous comments, I'd see it over here in the window. This is an initial submission, so this is currently blank. So now I'm ready to launch the drawings in Digiplan, and this is where that dynamic link comes into play, and we've embedded that directly into our review list here. So I can go ahead and launch it. And Digiplan is going to recognize the case number, so we'll see that there across the top of the screen, and it's using that to filter all of the documents that have been sent over to Digiplan. So here in our list, we can see that cycle 1 proposal that we previously saw back in Cityworks. So that's been passed through to Digiplan for us. I can go ahead and open up the plans and see that there's several sheets that make up this drawing. And I'm just going to open the first one for a quick demonstration today. So once it's opened, I can scroll through all the sheets. I can mark them up. There's several tools in DigiPlan that allow you to insert standard comments, call outs, you can highlight stuff, you can insert photos, take measurements and things like that. But for today, we're just going to keep it pretty simple. And I'm just going to add a standard comment. So you can see here, we've uploaded all of our comments to the system. I'm just going to pick one and drop it in here as an example. And the nice thing about these two is I can edit them as needed. So depending on my scenario, I can modify those standard comments and tweak them to fit my needs. And then once I'm done reviewing all of the pages in the file, if everything's good, I can go ahead and approve it with my stamp. And the nice thing about DigiPlan is it's recognizing who signed in. So you'll see here, once the stamp is applied, it's picking up on my signature and inserting that as part of the stamp there. And so once that's in there, I can just resize it and position it where I'd like it. Perfect. And then once we're all done, DigiPlan allows us to create our final drawings as well. So I can go and run what DigiPlan calls a final report or a final approved report, which essentially sends all the final drawings and markups back to Cityworks. So I'm just going to launch that right now. And perfect. So there we go, final report. And you'll see here, there's a few options for this report. It does get generated as a PDF. So there are a few different output options there, and you can include a cover page of all your markups if you'd like. We've just kept it simple. So we're just going to send our drawings back with any markups. And in just a moment here, we should see our success message. Perfect. So our drawings have been sent back to Cityworks. I'm going to jump back over to my dashboard, and I'm just going to actually open up that review task, and I'm just going to mark it as accepted so that the workflow knows that this review has been accepted. And this also, once again, tracks the date in the system. So if we wanted to drill down and look at some detailed reports with our reviews, all of the dates are there. And then I'll just open up that permit again, and we should see our approved drawings were sent over from DigiPlan. So once this loads, the attachment panel on the bottom right there should have two attachments in it, and one should be our approved drawings. There we go, perfect. So that top attachment there is our approved drawings from DigiPlan. We can see here that the attached by is our DigiPlan system account. So the API sent that over for us. So it's a really smooth process for our users. And then because I signed off on that review, if I take a quick look back at my dashboard, my assigned reviews has dropped back down to 1. So that review basically came off my to-do list, and it would show up on the inspector's dashboard for them to pick up again. So that's just a quick kind of overview of what our process flow is going to look like once we launch DigiPlan, and what those timelines look like once they're brought into the dashboards. So we're really looking forward to launching on Monday and exploring the benefits that these new tools will bring on board. And I'm really looking forward to working with our users. I'm a firm believer in continuous improvement. So once they're in there for a few months, we'll be circling back, talking to them, receiving their feedback, and potentially building out this process even further. So on that note, I will pass things back over to Chris.
Thank you very much. Okay, so just moving into the last few moments we have on our scheduled time this afternoon. In terms of questions and answers, if there's any questions and answers that you have, now would be a great time to put them in the Q&A panel. We have had a couple questions come in. Nicole, if you could answer this one, I'll just read it out. Does the city of Sarnia have plans to extend time tracking, these dashboards that you've shown in the plan review, beyond your current building permits? And what departments would you consider doing that with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do have plans right now to expand these dashboards. Our business licensing group is coming on board in November. So the dashboards are already pre-configured for our planning staff to actually receive business license reviews through the same method. So it'll show up in the same list. And then our business licensing group has set their own internal standards. So their timelines will feed into the dashboard. And then looking further ahead into 2023, we do have our planning department coming on board as well. So we will be looking to come up with some similar dashboards for them to track their deadlines as they relate to the Ontario Planning Act.
Fantastic, and good luck with the ever-changing world around us. One more question for you actually has come in. City of Sarnia planning to leverage location data out of Cityworks for any other applications or dashboards or anything else that you're dreaming of?
Yeah, another really great question. So I think we're definitely not unique in this scenario. COVID definitely helped push us to digitize our processes. So over the last few years, we've shifted from paper folders to shared folders on our network servers. And our goal is to eventually leverage our GIS and our parcels as our main gateway into those files. So all of our property information that is currently stored in those files, we want it all to be accessible through the GIS, which also allows us to link to any applications that may be open in Cityworks or history of applications in Cityworks. So right now we do have a tool that our planning staff are using to kind of like screen properties as different inquiries come in. And basically they're selecting the parcel and it's searching for any related building permit in Cityworks. So we're really hoping to expand on that, include bylaw cases, business licenses, planning applications, and everything like that in that same search tool. And then looking ahead too, we're in the process of launching our GIS hub for an open data portal. So we really want to start pushing out some of this information to the public through the GIS as well, whether that be public facing dashboards or web apps that show current applications and the status, all the way through to dashboards that would track current development patterns in the city. So we do have a lot of ideas on our kind of dream board right now that we are working towards.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much, Nicole. And I love the idea that you guys are getting situational awareness tools into the hands of users and potentially the public as well. I don't have to see any other questions and answers, and our time is almost up. So just in summary, I hope today's webinar helped you to understand some of the benefits of a configurable workflow engine and that this is a necessary requirement to a successful e-permit solution, how examples of Esri GIS can use to streamline and add value to the permit process, as well as other partner solutions such as DigiPlan for electronic plan review. Thanks for that, a great example, Nicole. And these overall digital transformation experiences from Lennox and Addington County and the city of Sarnia, as they've really wanted to change for the better as their cities grow and to bring new economic development opportunities into the area. Just closing out today, as we share information from this deck to you, there's various resources available to you about Cityworks, our practice here in public works and community development at Esri Canada, more that you can learn from actual users of Cityworks as well on the Cityworks YouTube channel. And for Cityworks users that might be on the call today as well, just to make them aware of the Innovate conference that's happening in December this year in person in Salt Lake City, as well as training courses that are available from Esri Canada or through Trimble's website. Thank you very much for your rapt attention today. And if you have any other questions, please reach out to me, Christopher Ross, so croth@esri.ca. Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you very much to our presenters today. Have a great day.